If I told you to sing from the head, would you know what I'm talking about? Hi, I'm Lois Johnston and this is my channel Singing Tips, and today I'm going to be explaining some of the commonly used musical terms that we find on printed music today, and a little bit about the origin of some of those terms and a little bit about what the terms mean. So just looking back at the history a little bit, I'm not going to go too much into this, but we know that prehistoric man used music as a form of communication. There are bone flutes and percussion instruments going back to Paleolithic times, so from around 1400 BC. And then, so music in different cultures, different parts of the world, all began to evolve in their own ways in different parts of the world. And then the Silk Road, much, much later, led to sharing of musical cultures. And then Western music was largely influenced by the Christian church. And it was through the Christian church that musical notation in Western music began to get organized. So around about 1000 AD, Guido d'Arezzo started organizing music into staves and musical clusters and musical groups so that people could read music. And the idea was that one group of monks at this monastery could notate what they were singing and pass it along to another group of visiting monks, and they could take it back. So it standardized the repertoire, I suppose, if you like. And that notation is the early form of what we use today in musical notation. So the staff, where we have the 5 lines and the notes written on those 5 lines and the spaces in between. And then you'd fast forward to, so there was all this church music, and then you'd fast forward in Western music to the Baroque era between 1600 and around about 1750. And music, while there was still a huge liturgical tradition, music also became a little bit more secular as well. So the two kinds of music, the sacred and the secular, influenced one another also. With the advent of printing, which happened in Italy, in Venice, actually, I think, composers could communicate their instructions. So when a composer wrote a piece of music, he or she would have an idea of how they wanted that music to be performed. So there was the notation of the actual notes and the key and rhythm. So that was one part of it. But also there was also the feeling that the composer wanted to get across. And this is where a lot of our musical terminology comes in. So that became really important and became much more developed, I suppose, as printed music started to become more available and more popular. So some of the terms I'm going to go into with a little bit of history if I think it's relevant. So one term that you will know quite well probably is a cappella or a cappella. And that actually means literally in the chapel. So what it's saying is it's in the old chapel style, which would have been unaccompanied. So a cappella means without any accompaniment. So the music is completely unsupported harmonically by any instruments. So that's one that comes back to that history of Western church music. And then there are some others here. I've got a huge list and I probably won't do them all. I'll try and pick, I'll let you know the ones that are singing specific. So one that we see in singing music a lot is dolce, D-O-L-C-E, dolce. Think about ice cream and you might get it. It means sweetly. And then in terms of speed, so that tells us that we need to sing it in a sweet style. It needs to sound like we're thinking sweet, tender thoughts. So a lullaby, for example, might have the instruction dolce. And then we have things like dynamic instructions. So piano, forte, mezzo forte, mezzo piano. So if we start with piano at one end, that's quiet. Forte at the other end is loud. pianoforte is actually the name of the instrument, the piano, and that's how these things all came to be interrelated. The pianoforte used to actually be called the forte piano, and now we've made that even shorter and call it just piano, but it was just an indication that that instrument could play both piano and forte, both quiet and very loud. Diminuendo is one term for getting quieter. Crescendo means getting louder. So often a crescendo is marked by a hairpin, so going from small to large at the other end. And then the other term for the getting quieter part, you can have diminuendo or you can have decrescendo. So crescendo getting louder and then decrescendo getting quieter. We also have instructions about speed. So it's really important to know how fast a piece of music should go. So some of those instructions are things like lento, meaning slowly, or largo, which means slow and stately, I suppose. Presto means quickly. Prestissimo means as quick as you possibly can. There's not much vocal music that I've come across that says prestissimo on, but if you know of something, I'd love to hear, so do let me know. And then there are things that are specifically for singers or their accompanists. So one of my favorites is con la voce, which is an instruction to your accompanist to follow the voice. So this could be a place in the music where the composer wants the singer to express their own emotion, and they can maybe play around with the tempo a little bit or be a bit more ad lib with the melody or whatever. And it's usually about the speed, slowing it down to emphasize the text in the way that you want to as a singer. And the instruction is con la voce, which is for the accompanist to follow the voice, follow the singer, because they might do something a little bit unpredictable there. Parlando is another one, which is singing specific, and it means like speaking, and it's saying sing this passage in a declamatory style, enunciating your words in the same way as you would if you were speaking. And then there are some little words like subito, which means suddenly, or molto, which means much. So you might have an instruction such as subito piano, which means suddenly get quiet, or molto crescendo, which means much crescendo, so a big crescendo. So there are lots of, little linking words that you see. Poco a poco is one of my favorite ones, which is little by little. So you might see poco a poco diminuendo, which means little by little getting quieter. And then there's another important one. Yes, the distinction between rallentando and rit. So rallentando is an instruction about speed, and it means gradually slowing down. So it's RALL full stop, which is an abbreviation of rallentando. That's the whole word. So slowing, getting slower gradually. And ritenuto is another one. Rit is also slowing down. And another one of my favorite ones is rubato, which is about how you perform a bit more freely in a particular passage. So if the composer says he wants or she wants this passage rubato, literally it means robbed or stolen, and it basically means that you're robbing value from some notes so that you can emphasize the ones that you want and make some notes slightly longer. So it's notated quite strictly, but if it says rubato, it means you can pinch some time from some of the other notes. So ultimately the passage still happens in the same time period that the composer intended, but with you, the performer, having the freedom to actually just stretch some of the tempo, make some of the notes a little bit shorter, some of them a little bit longer. And finally, we come to the one that I started with at the beginning, which is from the head. Now, this is one of the most commonly used musical terms. I think you'd have to have lived under a rock never to have heard musicians or people talking about music say this. It's when people say, let's take it from the top. And basically that means the Italian is da capo, which is from the head. And it's a musical style which came into prominence in the Baroque period again. So basically the structure of a da capo aria or piece of music is we have an A section and then a B section, and then we have the symbol DC, which is da capo, which is an instruction to go back and take it from the head. So I'm not saying go and sing in the toilet by any means. I'm just saying sing your da capo, which is go back to the beginning from the top, literally from the head. I hope you found some of these terms useful. Feel free to let me know if there are any other ones that you've come across that are particularly interesting. And I look forward to, as always, having conversations with you about singing. Hope you have a great rest of week. Bye.